You know what? Even if we banned all pesticides tomorrow, we're still going to have the same issues that we do today, because this is not a pesticide problem. This is not a bee problem. This is not any of these problems. This is a problem with our food production systems. And until we revise, reform, transform our food production systems away from this simplified monoculture model, we are not going to solve these issues. That's what makes this meeting so special. Let's figure out what causes pest problems to begin with, rather than always reacting to the symptoms as they start to outsmart us. If we manage a healthy ecosystem, folks, these pests are just not an issue as much anymore. That doesn't mean what I'm getting up here and saying is abandon all pest management principles. Ignore your pests. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that if we use some very simple conceptual ideas, that we can dramatically reduce our reliance on pesticides. Profitably. Reduce disturbance, increase diversity in our food production systems. Reduce disturbance. That kills soil. That kills the biology in soil. Step one in this process is to reduce or eliminate or reduce tillage. That soil biology is the basis upon which our food production systems relies. When you do this, you extirpate all of the natural biotic resistance to pest proliferation. You come in, you plant thousands of acres of a single plant species that is genetically limited to producing a large seed that we like to eat. The primary pest is the first insect that arrives. It no longer has any biotic resistance to its proliferation, and so you must replace biodiversity with a chemical. That is the pesticide treadmill in a nutshell, okay? It starts here. It starts here. The next thing, energy gets into your system via photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is produced by plants. We need more vegetation diversity within our food production systems in order to feed the rest of the biodiversity in that system. And there are agronomically proven ways of doing this. In South Dakota, we have the corn-snow-corn rotation. That is not diverse enough. That is not diverse enough. The science is clear on this, okay? We need to be extending these out 4 or 5 year rotations, oftentimes with a perennial phase. That is the most resilient and profitable rotation in the long run of food production systems. Intercropping, when you have 30-inch rows, you have 30 inches of bare soil. We need to be filling that up. We need to be feeding that. We need to be capturing that energy down into the soil. We need to be using cover crops in the fallow period. We need to be covering that soil. We need to be having roots in our soil. We need to be connecting growing seasons so that we don't extirpate the biology from that system. Field margins, conservation strips, these are tools for us. Weeds have a role to play. A zero-tolerance policy towards weeds is not okay. The most amazing thing is that as I started to ask these questions, I'm traditionally trained as an entomologist, that reacts to pests, right? That's how I learned. But I always questioned in the back of my mind how this procedure went, and then I started to interact more with farmers that are doing things differently. In Colorado, they are growing potatoes, which is an insecticide-intensive crop. Those of you of Maine probably know this. They're growing it without insecticides, this guy is. He's taken it's drier there than here. They have, so they irrigate, he uses his pivot corners for conservation strips. He actually plants flowering covers into his potato rows while planting. large seeded stuff so that he can plant it deep and it'll come up. And then he's eliminated one phase, the barley phase of his rotation, and instead of having that second crop, he plants a green manure that he then grazes. And by taking that second crop out of the rotation, he's actually increased the profitability of his long-term operation because he no longer needs fertilizers or insecticides during the potato phase. So he's looking at things rather than just at a single season at a time. There he is right there. That's Brendan Rocky in Alamosa, down in the San Luis Valley. He hasn't used insecticides in 20 years. Dwayne Beck, Bismarck, North Dakota. Man, Burleigh County, North Dakota, there are so many cool things going as far as regenerative ag is concerned. It's really profound. He hasn't used insecticides in 26 years. He doesn't use insecticides. He will use BT simply because he can't find corn seed that doesn't have it. Has trouble with that. Gail Fuller, no insecticide. Dave Brandt, they've actually, he's got his own soil type. He's changed his soil over the last, few decades using no-till and covers, that he now has a soil type that has never been defined before on his farm. When asked, I was having breakfast with him, I asked him, when's the last time you used insecticides? He said, it's been about 7 years ago. Like, all right. And he's like, except for that one 10-acre field. And I asked him, well, why do you do that? He's like, I put a seed treatment on, a neonic. And he says he puts it out there because his agronomist told him that all of his neighbors get like a 6-bushel yield bump. This isn't corn. I'm like, do you see that? He's like, no, I actually see a 9-bushel yield drag. And I'm like, well, why do you do that then? And he's like, well, to prove that my agronomist is full of crap. Every year, he's full of crap. Because when you change the soil, when you restore the soil's biology, you find that it doesn't behave by the same rules anymore. The same rules do not apply any longer. This talk was about pollinators. I will tell you the solution to the pollinator crisis. It ain't about varroa mite. It ain't about the diseases. It's not about the pesticides. Right there. That's your solution. It's very simple. Okay?